You are watching the New American Media. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at thenewamericanmedia.com. My name is Brian Engelman. It is a pleasure being with you again. Man, it's been an interesting week of sports. We got Lance Armstrong, we got Manti Te'o, and yes, I'm a homer. Not a Simpson. I'm a homer, though. I root for my favorite team, the Cleveland Browns, along with the Cleveland Indians, Cleveland Cavs, and Ohio State Buckeyes. So it is what it is. The Cleveland Browns have pretty much cleaned house with new owner Jimmy Haslam. And, well, let's just say the team is moving, well, they're moving in the new direction. Is it a better direction? I don't know about that, but it's going to be really hard to be any worse than they used to be. You know, they've been so consistently bad for so long. It's really hard to be any worse. It's really hard to be any worse than they have been. So that is the situation that we find ourselves in. And I'm logging in right now. Logging in to all of the various places. All the various places that we communicate. And there's a lot of them. So I'm going to run through this with you real quick, hoping that you can follow us as well. So how about we start with Twitter, shall we? Do you have a Twitter account? Huh? Do ya? Do ya have one? Because if you don't have one, you need to have one. So we are at American_media_, and we're asking that you follow us there. American_media_. Do that. Do that and follow us. Shall we? Facebook, search The New American Media and like our page, because we like it when you do that. What else? YouTube.com/The New American Media. A lot of videos up there, a lot of sports, and then we also have our Agree to Disagree show. Pretty much politics, religion, spirituality, finance, really anything you're not supposed to talk about with people inside of a bar. And that's why we do different shows here. Because, you know, sometimes we just want to be distracted. Sometimes we just want to be distracted from the realities of what's going on in the world, and that's why we talk about sports. Okay? That's what we do on the Unhappy Hour, and that's where you joined us today. So it's going to be a split program. We're going to talk with Zak Baris. He's going to join us for the entirety, but we're going to kind of split it up. We're going to split this into two different components here. We're going to have strictly Browns. We're going to talk about all the new offensive coordinators and the new direction the Cleveland Browns organization is taking. And then we're going to kind of shift gears, and we're going to go to a little bit more of a broader topic on the Unhappy Hour. And it's going to be Lance Armstrong, Manti Te'o, LeBron James, and more. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Zak Baris. He's a lifelong, fun when you blur two words together and you just come up with lifelong, lifetime Cleveland sports fan, and he's an NBA scout. Dude knows his stuff. He's been a regular co-host with us, I don't know, over the past year or so. Off and on. We got a lot of regular co-hosts. Brandon Odell co-hosts with us on the Unhappy Hour. Blake Wally co-hosts with us on Agree to Disagree. John B. Wells, he's a regular guest / co-host on Agree to Disagree, or Agree to Agree, because we tend to have a lot of similar things going on, similar opinions, different perspectives. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of what we do at the New American Media. We give you a voice, we bring you into the program, because it's really not about being barked to and absorbing our propaganda. It's more along the lines of contributing, having an open conversation, if you will. So let's bring in Zak to this conversation, if we will. And we will.
Hello?
Hey, Zak, it's Brian. You are live on the air, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Living the dream. It's been a long 5 weeks of home and office repairs, black mold invasion, ripping out walls and new piping and gutting things and rebuilding. So, you know, all things considered, we're doing fine, but really just trying to put all the renovations behind us. I know you recently moved into a new place. That was maybe a month or two ago, but how are you doing?
It was July. That was July.
Hang on a second. You're saying I really thought this was recent, that you switched from an apartment like a few stories down from you into another one.
I did. That was at the end of July, though.
Oh, my God. Zak, has it been that long since we've talked? No, it hasn't. I'm just Like I said, man, I've been busy and a little scatterbrained. So forgive my. How is everything going in the new year for you? Let's start with that.
It's been very, very busy. I haven't been in town much. Been traveling a lot over the past few weeks, but everything's been great.
Now, for all the listeners that are not aware, maybe hearing you for the first time, you are Los Angeles-based. However, your job as an NBA scout, a talent evaluator, if you will, it kind of has you bouncing around the country. So I guess maybe if you could just reintroduce yourself to people, who you are, where you're coming from, what you do, and then we'll get into kind of the meat of the Strictly Browns information that we have to cover today.
I'm Zak Baris. I've been working now as an NBA scout for 3 years. I worked for basically an agency for the last 2 years, and now I work for a team back east. So as a West Coast scout, and so obviously I do a lot of traveling back and forth back east. So and then scouting a couple times during the week. So it takes its toll, but otherwise I love what I do.
Fantastic. Well, we've talked on the program, by the way. If you're not following Zak on Twitter, he's at Baris. That's ZBARIS. Go ahead and follow him. Zak, I'm looking at your Twitter feed, man. You got a few thousand people following you now. I think people are starting to find out who you are and what you're up to.
I hope.
Well, that's why we keep doing this, because you're just as knowledgeable as any of the other cats that we talk to, either here or when we turn on ESPN. So let's put our focus for a little bit on the Cleveland Browns. There's been a lot of changes in the organization, especially in the past couple of weeks. Let's break them down a little bit and kind of let's get some of your reaction. I don't know where you want to start. We got Ray Horton, Mike Lombardi.
Well, let's start with the coaching staff.
Okay.
So we can work our way in. So. Rob Chudzinski was hired first. I loved him when he was in Cleveland back in 2007. People always look back to that 2008 year, and I can tell you right now, nobody would have won with Derek Anderson as their starting quarterback in 2008. I love the vertical passing game, and I think the receivers really fit that well now. Especially a guy like Josh Gordon, who's a real big deep threat. You have Greg Little over the middle, who was a very consistent number 2 receiver after he found his place in the offense, when he was no longer had to be relied on as the number 1.
Right.
And I think Gordon assumed that role as the number 1 receiver. It's just a matter of who's going to be the number 3. Is it going to be Mohamed Massaquoi? Is it going to be Travis Benjamin? Do they re-sign Josh Cribbs? There's a lot of questions to be answered still, but I really do like the Chudzinski hiring. Glad they got a good offensive mind. They got a guy who came in there. He loves Cleveland. He's already had 2 previous stints with the Browns. He's a successful tight ends coach. I think it's great for Jordan Cameron too if they decide to keep him, which I'm sure they will. But they might bring in some competition. I don't know yet. They have a lot of money to spend in free agency, but he always has these great tight ends everywhere he goes. Whether it was Kellen Winslow, Antonio Gates in San Diego, Greg Olsen in Carolina. He's always been He always utilizes the tight end to be a big part of the offense, and I really like to see that in Cleveland. Obviously, Jordan Cameron doesn't have the skills of Kellen Winslow, but it's still going to be fun to watch, and I think the Browns are going to be an exciting team. And I think it's a really good fit for Brandon Weeden. Had Chip Kelly come in here, you would have had to look at getting a proper quarterback to fit Kelly's system. Is that quarterback, Michael Vick? I don't know. The guy never played more than 12 games a season. He's already in his 30s, and he's a turnover machine at this point in his career. Does Alex Smith fit that? Now you don't have to worry about that. I think Brandon Weeden could be the guy. I would hope they don't take a quarterback in the first or second round this year because I don't think anyone's really worthy of it. I think they have a lot of other holes to fill. But, I think this offense I think it's situated for Weeden. And I think it fits his skill set.
Well, so let me bounce. Go ahead, finish. Hopefully,
and I don't think I think Colt McCoy will be gone. I think they're going to bring in a veteran quarterback, for competition for Weeden. I think you have to, but at the same time, I think you need to give Weeden a second year and see what he can actually do in a real offense. Because, like I said, in Pat Shurmur's offensive scheme, whether they had RG3 last year, I still don't think RG3 would have been successful in Pat Shurmur's system. I think, because he wasn't willing to adapt his offense to the quarterback's skill set, and he was just running a strict West Coast offense. Had Russell Wilson come here, he would have been a lot probably like Colt McCoy would have been. If you don't play to a player's strengths, you're not going to win. And Pat Shurmur failed to do that. In the offensive scheme that he ran. We didn't play in the strengths of the run game. Trent Richardson's supposed to be a guy that can wear down defenders. why doesn't he even get the ball in the second half? There were so many unanswered questions by Pat Shermer and the former regime.
Well, let me say with Trent Richardson though, with the thing with Richardson, he reveled that he had cracked ribs the whole pretty much the second half of the season.
It'll be nice to have him for a full season now, and trust me, I still think he's the best back to come out of last year's draft. Yeah. Alfred Morris may have rushed for 1,600 yards, but don't forget he was in a read option system with RG3 as his quarterback.
Right.
Had Alfred Morris been the Cleveland Browns, I can tell you right now, I doubt he would have even been close to 1,000 yards. The system just wasn't built for him. Washington would be, Trent Richardson would have gained 1,600 yards in Washington's system last year. He's a much better athlete, better player than Alfred Morris. He would have been very successful there. It's just the Browns just were not in a great system last year. The West Coast offense has become pretty obsolete in the NFL now.
What about Doug Martin down in Tampa Bay? Because he helped me win my fantasy league championship.
Well, Doug Martin's a good running back, but like I said, I just don't think the Browns, tailored their offense to the player's strengths. I think they failed to do that, and I think that's why Pat Shermer's out of a job.
Well, he's on the unemployment line. I haven't seen him interviewing anywhere. I'm not seeing his name really mentioned in.
He's not a hot name. He didn't do anything for the St. Louis Rams a few years ago. I don't know why, Holmgren was so into him. He should have gone after John Fox instead.
Well, didn't the Rams under Shermer didn't they make the playoffs at like 9-7 or 8-8 or something once?
They went 7-9, missed the playoffs in Bradford's rookie year.
And then they
30th ranked offense in the league.
Okay. And then didn't they have like that playoff or something or a wild card game or
no? They
came
were close. Seattle wound up winning that game.
Yeah, Seattle got it barely.
And beating New Orleans.
Okay, yeah.
But
tiebreaker.
I absolutely love the Norv Turner hiring as the offensive coordinator. He's a fantastic offensive coordinator, one of the best offensive minds in the game. He just isn't a good head coach.
Okay, let me pause on Norv Turner because I wanted to come back to one more point about Chudzinski before I lose the train of thought. You mentioned Derek Anderson. He had a great 07 with Chudzinski, and then 08 was just they reverted back. Yeah, it was a disaster. Now, do you see any similarities between what Rob Chudzinski was able to do with Derek Anderson? Year one, it worked for most of the season, and then year two, it went really sour, to Cam Newton having just a breakout rookie year.
Derek Anderson himself just went downhill. I think he lost a lot of his confidence. I think he was really worried about Brady Quinn taking his job, and I just don't think he ever recovered. He didn't recover in Arizona, in an offensive scheme there that Kurt Warner, had, great success in. He didn't play really in Carolina at all. So I think Derek Anderson basically just, I think the 2007 Browns, with having a health, don't forget in 2008 they did not have a healthy Joe Jurevicius. They had a ton of injuries, and I think that played a big part in them, and them losing, and not playing well.
Well, Jurevicius, he was that first down target, kind of like how Brian Brennan used to be.
He was that guy you knew he was just gonna. Yeah, he didn't drop anything. He was always good for that 10, 12-yard catch over the middle on third and long.
Yeah, he's not going to be your Pro Bowler. He's not the flashiest player, but he was like Brian Brennan was to Kozar. You need that first down, and Newsom's covered. You get it to Brennan, and he came up big in the clutch. But, a pretty pedestrian player. It worked for the system at the time. But I know a lot of this season people were talking about Cam Newton, saying, well, the league has caught up to Cam Newton. And well, maybe.
I don't believe it. I mean, don't forget this year that, I believe the Panthers' offense this year was 12th in the league, which by any means was not bad.
That's solid.
And San Diego has a decent offense too. Especially with Norv running the show. He's a great offensive mind. I have tons of faith in Norv running the offense. I'm sure he'll get Richardson involved in the game. I'm almost positive. And don't forget they have so much money to spend in free agency. You hear there are guys that are free agents like Danny Amendola, Wes Welker, Dwayne Bowe, they're probably, Mike Walsh, they're going to bring in someone. They're going to bring in a receiver. I know they're going to spend money. Haslam wants to win now. This isn't one of these things where Haslam wants to sit there and go with a 5-year rebuild. This is a guy who has a desire to win now. And I think they're going to wind up bringing in one of those receivers. And if they can do that, especially one of the good possession receivers, and catch the ball over the middle that gives Whedon a nice security blanket, it'll pay dividends. And I think, that Whedon's decision-making, I think that's the biggest problem with Whedon is his decision-making is just poor.
Well, what I said about Whedon, though? What I said about Whedon in his decision-making was, he's 29 years old, but he's still a rookie. Give him a second to get on the same page with the playbook, kind of understand the new speed of the NFL. I'm not ready to write a kid off or a man off after 1 year, especially when the franchise is let's just face it, that there's not a lot of stability in the franchise. So, yeah, I mean, I'm open. I don't feel positive or negative about these hirings necessarily. I'm willing to give it a shot, but these long-term strategies of, well, in a couple years we might be competitive to become 8-8. No, not in the NFL. You can turn it around in the NFL with a couple hirings. And like you said, we have a ton of cap space. So out of those receivers you mentioned, who do you think might be, if you had to place a wager, kind of blind at this point because we're very early into the free agency that hasn't started yet, which of those big-name receivers do you think you could legitimately see in a Browns uniform next year?
I think I could see any one of the four. I think Mike Wallace is the least realistic of the four. But
because he's a Steeler or because of other reasons?
No, just because he's Mike Wallace. I mean, actually, you know what? Now that Chud's the coach, actually I can see it being realistic. They already have their home run threat in Josh Gordon. I think that a possession receiver is more important than getting a speedster. That's at least my opinion. Is I don't know if Mike Wallace is the best fit, but with the air raid offense, that they're going to be running in Cleveland, maybe with just like the air raid offense, in the deep threat, Mike Wallace could be a really good fit. But I think having the possession receiver, looking back at 2007, you already have your Josh Gordon basically, and in what the Braylon Edwards mode was, in your deep threat. The thing is, we still don't have a tight end, that is, don't get me wrong, I really do like Jordan Cameron, but we don't have that Kellen Winslow or the Antonio Gates. I expect them to go out there and try to get a tight end this offseason, too.
Well, what you talk about.
I believe Watson's a free agent.
Well, you talk about the deep threat. I mean, Travis Benjamin, he's an undersized kid, but man, he made some big plays late in the season, too.
Yeah, Benjamin's fantastic. I really like Benjamin in the slot, but, like I said, they need to go out. They need to go out there. And they need to get a possession receiver. I think Wes Welker would be a fantastic fit for this team, and I think he's going to go chase the money, especially if New England wins a ring.
Okay, and so we've addressed the wide receiver. What else are we going to have to do? I guess if we're switching to a 4-3 defense, or I'm sorry, from a 4-3 to a 3-4, I guess we got to get a linebacker. Obviously,
they need a lot of linebackers. The one thing I really don't like about switching to a 3-4 is that they had a perfect D line for a 4-3. The D line.
Now we do.
You had Reuben.
Right.
You had now you're looking at is Reuben. Achop Reuben's a nose tackle. You got Phil Taylor on one of the ends. And then, Jabal Sheard's going to be a stand-up linebacker. They said it's going to be kind of a hybrid system, but I trust Ray Horton. I have full faith in him. He was fantastic in Pittsburgh. He was great in Arizona. And, he's a great mind. And don't forget, he's a guy the Browns interviewed as a head coach. The Browns, according at least with the national media and what other people have said so far, is that the Browns on their coaching staff cleaned up. They have a lot of good minds there. They got their top choices for everything, other than Chip Kelly. But, I think this might be a better fit. You're not looking at a transition year in schemes. Had you hired Chip Kelly, you were looking at, bringing in Chip's guys in there, that could fit his system. Now you're running a, pure NFL system. And Chudzinski is able to adapt his offense. He adapted it for Derek Anderson, to Cam Newton. The guy's a good offensive mind, and so is Norv Turner. I have full faith in the coaching staff, and I really like the hiring of Ray Horton, too.
So Ray Horton, you think that he's going to get Joe Hayden to kind of mature a little bit? You think TJ is going to be even more aggressive?
I fully believe so. And the Browns will. I would be shocked if they don't take a defensive player in the first round.
Oh, okay.
That's I think an outside linebacker, or you can even look at the secondary. But I don't know if there's really any defensive backs worth taking at 6 overall.
Well, I mean, the way that they drafted last year, with Mitchell Schwartz, with Brandon Weeden, with Trent Richardson, with Josh Gordon being our second-round pick this year, I could see a full defensive draft. Maybe a 5th or 6th round quarterback to be, someone to come in as a potential future, like a late-round steal kind of thing. But yeah, I see him going heavy defense, and they're stacked at linemen. Do you think Phil Taylor could be effective as an end? Is he quick enough? We know he's strong enough. But
the defensive ends in a 3-4 they're not usually heavy pass rushers. A lot of them are run stoppers. But yeah. Phil Taylor can get to the quarterback. We've seen that.
Right. Well, he can get to the quarterback from straight on.
Quarterback before.
Right. Well, it's a different. That's what I used to play was defensive end, but I was in a 4-3, so I really got to blitz the hell out of the quarterbacks, which I loved. I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. Do you think Manti Te'o is going to be there in round 3 when we get a chance to come back? Yeah, I'll tell you what.
I don't know where he's going to go until this whole saga plays out.
Exactly.
Really
well, I'll tell you what. That's a little tease, because what we're going to do is when we're done talking about the Cleveland Browns, stay with us or click on the new video. We're going to talk on the Unhappy Hour about Manti Te'o, Lance Armstrong, LeBron James, and more. So make sure you stick around for that. Just a little teaser. We won't get into that here. But, okay, so they draft heavy defense. You think Ray Horton is going to be a stud. Norv Turner, he had a long time to get it done over in San Diego. Didn't happen. But you like that he's kind of abdicating some of that responsibility, just focusing on offense as a coordinator. And you think this could really work for our offense right now for Cleveland, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everywhere where Norv's gone, as an offensive coordinator, he's had a great deal of success for the most part. And, like I said, I have a lot of faith in him. I think he can do a great job. He did a great job in the 1 year in San Francisco with Alex Smith. And then, and Alex Smith, had a few bad years after that, but now, I can see the Browns bringing in him, but I doubt that would happen, just because Norv did have success with Alex Smith. But I highly doubt that happens. Alex Smith doesn't throw a great deep ball. I think, like I said, they're going to stick with Whedon at quarterback, is my personal opinion, and they're going to bring in someone to compete, whether that's trading for Ryan Mallett, whether it's getting Brian Hoyer. They're going to bring in someone.
Yeah, we've heard Ryan Mallett rumors over there. I don't know why.
Well, it's because Mike Lombardi was fascinated with Ryan Mallett a few years ago. Don't forget, Mike Lombardi is also a huge Blaine Gabbert fan, too.
Well, what quarterback's going to be successful down in Jacksonville with what they have going on and Jones-Drew being
Blaine
gone?
Gabbert was terrible. But the thing is, if Blaine Gabbert's a free agent, would you bring him in as a backup? I don't know. I don't know Mike Lombardi's exact philosophy, exactly what he thinks. But, here's to hoping, that he makes some right moves. He's learned from his mistakes. But, I've never seen something like this before, where the local media just hates him so much. They have so much, there's just, there's so much, hate and disdain for this guy. And then the national media is just praising the hire, going, oh, what a hire, And Jimmy Haslam yesterday, I'm sitting there watching the press conference when Jimmy Haslam goes, if you can get this guy as GM, you have to do it. Then if this guy was so highly praised, why has he not had a job for the last 5 years or even an interview?
Well, he's had a job with the NFL Network. So is Bill Cowher. They've worked in the media.
I'm talking about, in a front office gig. But the one thing
maybe he didn't want it, though.
The Browns still have their same scouting staff.
That's true. That is
scouting staff as last season, which makes me feel a lot better.
Now let me focus on that for a second. Let me do two things. I want to come back. I want to break this into two parts. First, I want to kind of hit reset on Mike Lombardi, on the days that he had with the Browns organization before, which is why the media dislikes him now. And then secondly, I want to split this up and kind of talk about what you're saying, that we've retained our recruiting staff, because you work as a scout. You can kind of give us a little bit of insight as to what that means, that we kept Tom Heckert's crew and just got rid of Heckert. So first off, just kind of hit refresh for us. Mike Lombardi, the history of him being with the Browns, and why do you think the media is hammering on him now, and why do you think it was the wrong hire with Lombardi?
Well, he was incredibly unsuccessful with the Browns almost 20 years ago at this point. He just wasn't successful. And, he didn't, in a lot of the other places he went to, they just weren't, he wasn't very successful either. So, I mean, like I said, I really, hope that he's learned from his mistakes, but at the same time, like I said, having him in there worries me a little bit because of all of his past mistakes. But, a general manager is only as good as his scouts are, though. And, that's what they always say. You base a lot of stuff off what your scouts tell you. The GM is only one person. They can't sit there and watch. Don't forget, in the NBA, at least I know, there are 60 guys that are drafted every year in the NBA. A GM can't go and review and look at every single one of the players and have time to actually properly evaluate someone. That's why you hire a scouting staff, to go out there and evaluate your players for you. And then basically, and you have discussions and meetings every week discussing these certain players that have been scouted, and everybody takes a look at each player, and then each team centers in on their guys that they like after having multiple people having watched the one player. So that's where I like that the Browns, kept the scouting staff intact. I don't know how much was Tom Heckert. I don't know how much was the scouts. But Tom Heckert did have a good mind. He rebuilt the roster, and I thank him for that. That this team, granted the record, it hasn't shown up in the record, but this team is now a bunch of young guys. They're not a bunch of 32 and 33-year-old guys like we had under Mangini a few years ago. That roster was just an absolute disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So so hopefully it all plays out where they're able to be successful this year, bring in some veteran free agents, help them mesh with the young guys, and suddenly you have a successful roster. But they do have a lot of money. I fully expect this team to be no worse than 7 and 9 or 8 next year. But I can't even judge this until I see the draft and then what they do in free agency.
Of course.
If they hit a couple home runs in free agency by going out and getting a big time receiver, signing a decent offensive guard,
and they have the money for it, thankfully. They're in a position where they have the money for it. They have young talent, but some of the young talent, let's face it, Mike Lombardi, he was working for NFL.com, and he was pretty strongly criticizing Josh Gordon and Brandon Weeden. And Josh Gordon even tweeted out, am I in trouble?
The Weeden pick, I don't blame him for criticizing the Weeden pick.
Same here. I did too.
During the press conference. I think everyone criticized the Weeden pick, and it turned out it wasn't, but that's not saying, you got to give him a second year. But the Josh Gordon pick, yes, he called that a waste of a pick. And then yesterday when he got grilled on it, he even admitted, he goes, I was wrong. He goes, Josh has nothing to worry about here. He goes, I can't wait to watch him, So he's not planning on getting rid of Josh Gordon. I would highly doubt that. But,
yeah, I'm not necessarily saying it either, but it's a legitimate concern for some of these players.
I remember I hadn't seen anything on Josh Gordon. I had seen no film on him, nothing. And I remember the Browns like, they spent a second-round pick on some guy. Great, it's going to be a waste. You would have put Gordon in the last year's draft or this year's draft. Let's say you put him in this year's draft and you would have had a successful season at Baylor. You translate what he did in the NFL, Baylor, Utah. We'd be looking at a top 5 pick, top 10 pick, guaranteed. Right. He was better than Justin Blackmon. He was by far the best.
You could even say that Josh Gordon has his head screwed on tighter than Justin Blackmon, if that's easy to believe, being suspended twice for marijuana.
A lot of people were upset with the pick because the guy's been busted, with marijuana 50 times or so, however many it was. But look at Hecker's track record. They've taken guys, that have had off-the-field problems, Jabal Sheard, Josh Gordon, Phil Taylor, and none of them have had problems with Cleveland. All of them,
Mitchell Schwartz.
Great now. I didn't know Mitchell Schwartz had a problem at Cal. I was unaware of that.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
I'm talking about guys that had off-the-field problems.
Okay. And then you had to evaluate what's in their heart and where their future lies, if it was just a mistake or habitual problem.
He hit, Phil Taylor to me, he's a great player. The Browns defense was in lockdown mode when he came back. He was excellent.
Yeah.
He played really well. Jabal Sheard's, he's a stud. The Browns have a lot of talent on that roster. They just need the veteran presence, and I think the better coaching staff will help put everything together. Hopefully everything clicks in.
I got one more question I just want to get back to this one more time, because as an NBA scout, I guess this is another two-parter. So imagine if you're in a system, and you've been in several, and you have a scouting team. Say the person in charge of the scouting team is gone, but you keep the same system. Do you really see that much changing, or is the success of the team...
It depends who comes in. I actually have to say, I can't get into it so much, but I was in a situation, actually, where, the team I'm with now is the director of college scouting actually left, and, to go pursue another opportunity or bigger opportunity. But no, nothing changed, but it's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes they'll have a guy that'll come in there and want to, change up and put his guys in there and doesn't have a lot of faith in what other people say.
Right.
But, luckily, fortunately, we're not at that point, and, hopefully the Browns, like I said, they've retained the scouting staff. They obviously felt what they saw was a positive. So I take that in every which way as a good sign. So, they've drafted well over the last couple of years. And now, like I said, all they have to do, they have a great coaching staff in place. This is a guy, we have Ray Horton, a guy who understands the Browns-Steelers rivalry. He's with the Steelers. Chudzinski understands it. He's a longtime Browns guy. Norv Turner's been in the league forever, and he's had so much success as an offensive coordinator. And just like, they've got 2 offensive line coaches now. Like I said, they're filling the roster, and everybody so far has been praising the coaching staff, saying they've hit a home run on every coach.
Well, let me one more question here on this, because I have one more draft question for you. we had experienced former head coaches in Brad Childress and Dick Duran. I mean, that's kind of the same strategy we're saying is, they were good at their other thing.
No, they were just having Brad Childress. Don't forget, when Brad Childress left Minnesota, it did not end on good terms. There was a reason why he was out of the league for a year. People even said, no one courted Brad Childress, like Pat Shurmur. Norv Turner's an experienced offensive mind who's had success everywhere he's gone. Brad Childress had success for a couple of years in Philly, but it seemed like everyone had success in Philly. Marty Mornhinweg had success there. Everyone did. Pat Shurmur was the quarterbacks coach in Philadelphia, and, but Norv Turner's much more highly regarded than Brad Childress. But Ray Horton, Ray Horton's one of those aggressive guys. He blitzes a lot. He's part of the Dick LeBeau tree, and that's what I want to see. I want to see heavy blitzing in Cleveland. I want to see that. I love when they can get to the quarterback. I like Dick Duran. He was highly regarded too, but the Browns felt they had a better, younger mind in Ray Horton, and that's what they chose to do. I think the guy has future head coach written all over him. His players love him. And like I said, just hopefully for the near future, he's with the Browns. I'd love to see the guy get a head coaching gig one day, and that but that would just mean the Browns are going to be successful if he does someday. So
right.
Hopefully it goes over well.
Well, let's use this final one as a transition question then. I mean, as far as all the hirings that we've done and what's going on with Cleveland with Lombardi and Horton and everybody else, Norv Turner, that's all fantastic. But really, until we get a draft, until we get through training camp, until we sign some free agent, we don't know. So, I mean, we've covered as much of it as we can.
The thing was, like, a lot of people are ripping the Chud hiring as if a week and a half ago. I know I wasn't ecstatic about it. I wasn't,
I wasn't dancing. I wasn't thrilled. But I wasn't thrilled. I'm open to the concept that it could work.
They didn't go and get their guy. They missed out on Chip Kelly. They missed out on Nick Saban.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't know if they missed out on him so much as like if you're a nightclub and you hit on a hot chick and she's not into you. Like, what are you gonna do? I didn't miss out. It just wasn't in the cards.
No, well, I'm just saying though. It's just the Browns. They had everybody. Everybody was so excited. For Chip Kelly. It made it sound like, oh yeah, we're gonna get Chip. We got our guy.
You know what that reminds me? Well, I was just going to say, that reminds me of the tweet that you sent out. You said, hey, it's no big, you said something along the lines of, hey, we all knew that this was coming, that we were going to get Norv Turner for a week. And I replied back on Twitter saying, yeah, but we also knew that Chip Kelly was going to be the next Browns coach. And we knew that Manti Te'o knew that he had a girlfriend at the same time, kind of just laughing at it. But, rumors are rumors until it's true, so, I mean,
yeah,
you never know.
But like I said, I'm very happy with the coaching staff. You have a lot of head coaching experience now, and I like a lot of coaching experience. I didn't even say head coaching, but like you have a lot of experience from guys who have been in successful systems before, and that's what I really like about it. So let's hope the Browns, are successful. Like I said, we can't judge anything. I can't tell you how well they're going to do this season until everything takes its effect, this summer. You don't know about injuries. You don't know about anything. It all depends how free agency plays out. But, they seem to have surrounded themselves with, some great coaches, and let's just hope, it leads to success in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm in agreement with you that you just look at the numbers. You look at the numbers that the Browns have to spend and a new owner that just spent $1 billion. I'm fairly confident that they're going to go out there and really get aggressive as hell in free agency to fill some of those weak points on the team.
You don't want to be super aggressive because you can't blow all your cap space. I mean, look what the Jets did a few years ago with Mike Tannenbaum. They went and they traded all their draft picks. They kept trading up. They traded up for Sanchez. They traded up for Sean Green. They wound up having 2 or 3 draft picks that year. And then they went out and filled their roster with a bunch of high-priced veterans who were on the tail end of their career. A la the Jason Taylors, the LaDainian Tomlinsons. They went out and they traded draft picks for Braylon Edwards, And, yeah, it got them to 9-7, but they were never any better than that. They were still a mediocre football team who happened to get lucky in the playoffs.
The Atlanta Hawks of the NFL.
I guess.
Just the mediocre is what I was saying. Good enough to compete, but not strong enough to win when it counts. But yeah, okay. Then let me use this as the transition question here, and we're going to roll into the unhappy hour for a broader conversation on a few other topics, general in sports like Lance Armstrong and Manti Te'o and whatnot. And also coming up, we're going to talk on Agree to Disagree with Blake the Eccentric Wally. We're going to be talking, world politics and fun stuff over there, so stick around. But as we make this transition, I had one last question. As an NBA scout, I remember when LeBron James played for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I remember when there was even a commercial where LeBron was wearing a Cleveland Browns jersey. Would he have worked out as a wide receiver or tight end? I know we've probably talked about it before, but you just have me revisiting it again because
I tend to think so. I mean, but the guy hasn't played he hasn't played tackle football since he was in high school. But something tells me he's just such a freakish athlete and so talented that he would have success. Granted, I think it would take a little while, but I think he would have a great deal of success because he has a tremendous amount of speed. I mean, he's just a ridiculous athlete. He's one of the best athletes, maybe if not the best, of our generation.
Right up there,
I don't know how many athletes are better than him.
Yeah, exactly. And I just got thinking like Neon Dion, playing baseball and football, and it was possible. It just got me thinking about it. If scouts were legitimately kind of whispering in his ear, "Hey man, you could be a 2-sport star. You could do this. You could I don't know, just something."
There's no way that would work. There's no way that would work out in this day and age. Being LeBron, his body would never hold up being in the NBA and the NFL. I mean, you take such a beating playing tight end or wide receiver. What if his knee blows out his knee and suddenly he loses his huge endorsement country? It's not worth it. If he wasn't a star in the NBA, I would say something different. But the fact that he's the greatest player in the league, you can't take that risk of playing in the NFL.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to talk a little bit more about LeBron James because something Zach and I have talked about ad nauseum. We've talked over and over and over again about this concept that LeBron is going to come back to Cleveland, and I kind of just throw my hands up, and it's not that I can't believe it. It's that I don't even want to go there mentally because it took them winning the Heat winning their first championship down there with LeBron for me to finally get it off my shoulders and just stop caring about it. So I don't even really want to think about it, but it's back in the news. Is LeBron coming back to Cleveland? Could he come back to Cleveland? Could he repair his image? Could he bring the first championship to Cleveland since 1964? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Lance Armstrong, Manti Te'o, and a little bit more. When we come back on the other side, our guest for Strictly Browns has been Zak Baris. Make sure you're following him on Twitter. He's at ZBaris. That's ZBaris. Go follow him if you like sports and humor and witty insight and banter. So check him out, and we're going to hit reset here. If you're listening live, it's going to take a couple of seconds. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, thank you for listening on YouTube. Do us a favor, click subscribe, leave your comments below. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more national stories here on thenewamericanmedia.com. I'm Brian Engelman. Here we go.
You are listening to The New American Media.